I got a lot of people who come to me and say, Laurie, you're a TEDx speakers coach. I want to do a TEDx. Help me. How do I get there? And what they sometimes assume is that it's like, okay, let's create this perfect keynote. Let's create this killer script. Get on this one stage and do it perfectly fine. And what I found out is through the journey of like accepting what it takes to become that person. And that's what I call the speaking muscle, is you need to grow that muscle and feel comfortable in owning the identity of being a speaker and then becoming a compelling speaker everywhere you go. So I was almost like self-sabotaging my own journey, because I thought if I have success too fast or too easy, I'm not inspiring.
Hey everyone, welcome back to this podcast. Today I have with me Laurie Mabelis. She is a friend of mine. She is a TEDx speaking coach, and she's just an amazing human who I met at Dean's Mastermind. Actually, fun story. One time I was talking to someone, and then that person apparently has worked with Laurie, and just starts telling me how incredible of a coach she is. So, real treat for you today. Thanks for joining us, Laurie.
Appreciate you and appreciate the introduction. It's so
For
funny.
sure.
Always like whatever happens behind your back, you don't know about that, right? So I'm happy it's a good thing.
Yeah. So you talk a lot about building that speaking muscle, right? What is the speaking muscle and why do we need to build a speaking muscle?
Yeah, very good question. And I think it's also important to think about like why speaking in the first place, right? Like you as listener probably have an amazing business going on and you want to scale, right? If that's you, you're in the right place. And I would love to share how public speaking can add some value to that. Um, because as a business, you need to do marketing and sales, right? And what if there's a way, what if there's a vehicle where you can do both simultaneously while potentially getting paid for those and establishing a really interesting human experience for someone else so they feel connected with you? So to answer your question, Ria, like if we go to the gym and want to create this killer body, like how many times do we need to go?
Consistently, like twice a week, three times a week, every day.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And it's about like the consistency. That was the first word, and that was the word I was looking for. And the same work with speaking, right? I got a lot of people who come to me and say, Laura, you're a TEDx speakers coach. I want to do a TEDx. Help me. How do I get there? And what they sometimes assume is that it's like, okay, let's create this perfect keynote. Let's create this killer script. Get on this one stage and do it perfectly fine. And what I found out is, first of all, everybody who wanted a TEDx and worked with me got one, so that's kind of pretty cool. But
Congrats.
more through the journey of like accepting the what it takes to become that person. And that's what I call the speaking muscle, is you need to grow that muscle and feel comfortable in owning the identity of being a speaker and then becoming a compelling speaker everywhere you go. um, so yeah, that's basically what I mean with the speaking muscle. And I have some cool strategies, maybe I can share them later, on how you can build that for yourself, with that doesn't cost you any extra time, doesn't cost you any extra effort, but you really leverage the opportunities that you already have to build that muscle for yourself.
It definitely makes sense. You know, you learn something and you got to practice your speaking skills. So you can get into the strategies in a little bit, but I'm really curious as to what you said earlier. As, you know, business owners, we're trying to market, we're trying to get sales. You're saying we can do all of that and get paid to do it. How do we do that?
It sounds pretty cool, huh?
It does. It sounds incredible.
Yeah. So what public speaking is so elegant with is you can speak one to one, right? But then you can do that to some sort of extent, and then time is getting limited. So what if you can share your message once and then share a lot of people at the same time? Well, that is what public speaking does, right? So for you to market yourself, let's look at marketing and sales like as a separate identities and first focus on the marketing.
Okay.
So in order for you to market your message and for really people to make that commitment to you to say yes, I think there's three steps that need to be done or dealt with. And that's that people, first of all, know about you, then they like you, they feel resonating with you as a person, and then they trust that you can help them and that they will actually get the results. And what the beauty of public speaking is, which basically is sharing your story, your message, your life experience with teaching points that facilitates a breakthrough for someone else on a stage to multiple people at the same time. So for you to share that message with a big audience gives you instant leverage to so many people. It's a great ROI of your time. But what it does as well, and this is the beauty, this is what I believe the art is of speaking, is you can watch reels for hours for someone else.
Yeah.
And for some people, honestly, like I follow some people and I feel that I start to know them, even though I don't, just from reels. But imagine if you're able to have like a almost an intimate conversation for like an hour, right? Do you feel that that will increase the level of connection, of empathy, of connection that you have with that specific person, right?
Of course, yeah.
So what I say public speaking is that it's nothing more than crafting an emotional journey that facilitates a breakthrough for someone else. And if you can really go into the depth and you tell something about yourself, you include some personal stories, then people are way more compelled to work with you. Um, so you can market yourself out there in a way more elegant way. The benefit from it as well is now I'm talking to your audience, Ria, and you as a listener may already know Ria, and you're like, Ria's cool, and apparently Laurie is her friend. Okay, then Laurie might be cool too, right? So the resistance of working with me already decreases just because you know Ria, right? So you leverage the trust and the authority of the person who you're sharing a stage with at that moment immediately. So that is a great one as well. And then last but not least, what do you think as a listener will happen once you start sharing that you are a speaker, that you stood on stage, that you have testimonials of event hosts that hosted you or podcast hosts that hosted you that said, she was pretty damn cool or he was amazing, stellar. What will happen to your credibility, your
Shoots way up.
trustworthiness in the
Yeah.
market? Way up, right? What happens to your price because of that?
Goes up too.
Goes up too. So there we go. The marketing piece, talking to more people, way more trust, and you can increase your price just by the presence of your brand. Now, then the sales aspect. Um, you can get paid doing speaking fees, speaking keynotes, right? So someone else can hire you to do your talk and then to just pay you. But that's very transactional, and there's way more exponential growing ways, which I'm thrilled to share with all of you. And that is, what if you can make an invitation for people to work with you longer?
Yeah, because I was
So
gonna say, like, what is realistic to get paid as a speaker when you're just getting started?
yeah, that's a very fair question. And I would start by saying, just go out there and do everything for free and build that muscle, right? Build that confidence with yourself that you know that you can deliver the value. But just to scope the perspective, there are speakers out there who get like $200,000 per hour, and it's a billion-dollar industry in the US alone. So the industry is there. It's just about like, do you feel that you own that value of asking that price, right? And that confidence comes from practice, and practice comes from just going out there and doing it now.
Yeah, fair enough. I was also thinking about it in terms of, let's say you even get paid a few $1,000 for your speech. Or you could give an invitation for people to work with you. You get like a few clients, your prices are like, 5 to 10,000. Now you're getting like 15 to 30K. That's way more than you can probably get
Exactly.
as a speaking fee if you're just starting out.
Absolutely. Like that's the whole point that I'm trying to make. And what if at some point you become so good that you can do both? So you literally get paid to speak in front of an audience, and then you make an invitation and you earn on the back end. So it's literally the coolest thing in the world. And this is for a lot of people who are into self-development. Public speaking is not something that most people are most excited about in their life. I'm like, Ria, it's gonna be public speaking. It's like, let's invite all your friends, let's do it together. There might be people who are like, the heck no. I've been that person myself, right? So knowing that you dive into that fear and to lean in and to become better, it just accelerates the confidence, the personal growth, and so many other areas of your life.
Okay. You also talk a little bit about how when you're giving a talk multiple times, you can experiment with different parts of the talk. What are the sort of critical parts that you should be experimenting with?
Ooh, I love this question. I've never had that before. Um, what I would say, and I always believe that you should experiment every single time, and that's also maybe personal, but I get bored quite fast. So if I would do all the time the same, I wouldn't enjoy it. So I won't be radiating the fun that I want to radiate. So what I would experiment with is, what stories do you include in your talk? So just like putting something right there very quickly is, in every talk there's an order and a sequence that, or like specific steps that you always want to include. One is, what's the problem? What's the obstacle? What is the desire? On the other side is, what's the solution? What do you provide? What are the steps that people can take? In order to fill those specific blocks, you can use different content, right? And part of that content are stories. It's what I call a story library, like the library of your life that's literally full of stories. And you can plug and play those stories. So what I would experiment with is to use a story to see how it lands, to see how you feel about it. And maybe you want to swap another time for another story. So really like iterate upon how you fill in those content blocks.
So when you're okay, let's just say you swap a story for a different story. How do you know if it impacted the audience? Like, how do you know if the impact on the audience was greater or if they preferred the previous story? How do you judge which iteration was better?
Yeah, yeah, this is a very good question, and I love to have this discussion with you, right? Because you come from a place of like coding, right? And maybe I'm butchering what you're doing, but from a very measurable sort of way. And it's beautiful to put that lens over the speaking, which is also a little bit of an art. So there's the quality and the quantity. So I would say there's different ways of reflecting. First of all is, how did it feel for yourself? Like, was it more fun to do? Did you enjoy it? Did you like the way it came across? Second is, did it get the result that you wanted? And that can be different. Like, I always call that, what's the aim you're trying to reach? What's the end result that you want to get across? What's the message? And is this story going to add value to that main message that you want to get across? And the third is, how is the audience responding? And you can measure that through applause. But I always love to talk to the people afterwards. What resonated? What was your biggest breakthrough? If you would listen to this the next time, what would you like to see differently? So I would say it's more a journey than like an exact thing that you can measure. But I would love to include those three, like the end result, how did you feel, and how did the audience feel?
It totally makes sense. And getting feedback from the audience is like a great piece to add to that. Always get the
Mhm.
feedback so you can keep iterating and keep improving.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
one Yeah. So one thing I also wanted to ask you is, so you talked a little bit earlier about how making sure you're getting onto stages in front of your ideal audience so that you can market and sell at the same time. And you talked a little bit about how like on Reels, people can just binge a bunch of those. And that's one way to get in front of your ideal audience. How would you get in front of like stages in front of your ideal audience?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And my personal secret sauce in this is that I really ask myself the question, how can I do this most easily? I really come across so many entrepreneurs, and they're like, yeah, and we do the outreach and this and that. And I'm like, phew, it sounds complicated and hard. And for me, no fun. So I really look through lens, how can I make this most easy, impactful, and fun? And for me, it's like, I have amazing entrepreneurial friends, and those friends have audiences who very much align with what I'm doing. So what I do is I collaborate a lot with people I already know, because they already know what I'm doing, so they're able to introduce me better, just like you just did. You did an amazing introduction. I feel so seen. It feels so round. And if someone who doesn't know me needs to introduce me, it's more factual. There's no real connection. And I think that is what in this world is needed a lot, because there's so many coaches. Is if you feel it's inauthentic or not real, then the trust is lacking. If it's real, it's real. So I love to collaborate with people I already know, and I love to ask them for who I think I should reach out to them. Because podcast hosts, no podcast hosts. Speaking organizers, no other speaking organizers. So I do a lot through own network and then referral through those. I'm not saying that cold outreach doesn't work. I did myself as well, and it got me to the network of Mel Robbins. So it's super possible. But if you want to do it now and you want to do it fast, I would say go to your own network and ask for referrals.
Okay. That's definitely like a very simple, doable thing. I love it. So you're also really energetic, full of life, just joyful. And one thing I think that's coming out through this is you're always like, I look through everything with the filter of, is it fun? So that
Yeah.
probably helps a little bit. But how do you get your energy and where does your passion from life come from?
Ooh, I love your questions, Ria. These are so
Thanks.
great. Where does my passion of life come from? Whew. Um, Hmm. I think through different vehicles. One of them, and that's more my personal story. Like I didn't really go through like a really intense traumatizing experience. Like I have great parents. I was supported. Like all these things. And part of me thought, in order for me to help someone else better, I need to go through a traumatic experience. So I was almost like self-sabotaging my own journey, because I thought if I have success too fast or too easy, I'm not inspiring. Um, and then on the other side, I have a grandma, and she's my hero. Like I don't know what, but somehow I just have such a connection with her. It's insane. And she was born in a family of like 14, and she worked from like the age of 2, never really finished school, but made my mom and her sister, like she provided everything, like she did it all. They worked their ass off. They turned over like every dollar basically they had, or euro in my case, because I'm from the Netherlands. And she really helped my mom to be self-providing. And my mom went to university and was the first person in the whole family. And now my mom and my dad got 2 kids, and they provided everything for them. And for me, it feels like it's like my showcase to my previous generations. Like I'm taking your work with gratefulness, and I'm using it as a leverage to give that to other people as well. So that's a big part of it. And at the other side is I also had periods of my life where it wasn't fun at all. Like I didn't go through big traumatic events, but I experienced downsides for sure. Is and the biggest of that is I had a 7-year long romantic relationship, which was awesome in the beginning. But then at some point we really pivoted in different ways. And it was really hard for me to accept that and to speak up for what I wanted, because I didn't know exactly what I wanted. And you're a teenager, you go through your own stuff. And for me to say, you know what, this doesn't work for me after 7 years building our lives together, was such a courageous move, the biggest courageous move I've ever made in my life. Honestly, I've done some crazy stuff, but this is how it felt for me. And to know that I was actually really unhappy and I chose for my own happiness proved to myself that this is something I prioritize. And I don't want to um, um, downgrade my own expectation of what's possible for myself. So I think those 2 stories might shine a light on how I behave as a person.
Yeah, that's definitely so beautiful, especially your connection with your grandma. Like I've also seen your Instagram stories where you're just dancing around with your grandma, and it's wonderful to see how close you guys are.
Yeah.
So you also talk back to like to pivot again back to a little more speaking related stuff. You talk a little bit about the difference between presenting versus public speaking. What's the difference and when do you use each of them?
Yo, you are an amazing interviewer, Ria. These
Thanks.
questions are solid. I love it. All right, so what's the difference between public speaking and presenting? I honestly think the words represent the same direction. What I felt though, and this is an interesting one for you as a listener to reflect upon as well, is what is the association that people have with that word? So, for example, when I shared I'm a public speaking coach, people thought sometimes that I am helping newlyweds with their wedding speeches. It's like, well, no, 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 that's not what I'm doing. So I'm not presenting it in the right way, I guess. So when I say presenting, what that associates for a lot of other people is it's more corporate. It's more in front of a boardroom. So what I started to do is I started to use different words for, in my opinion, the same thing, just to see what the association is that people have. So what I say now is, Ria, do you know entrepreneurs who want to scale their business and have more income and more impact?
Yes, of course.
Yes. Oh, well, I help them exactly do that by using public speaking as a marketing and sales tool.
Okay.
So I'm basically pinpointing the words and I'm coloring in the definition of what I mean with that. So I use different words as an experiment, I would say.
So the words create associations. Do you also do that within your speeches where you test out different words for different stuff to see what the associations are?
Absolutely, 100%. And the beauty of this is that it has a lot to do with how we color in the meaning. So, um, for example, growth, right? Or love or authenticity. Those are what I call window words. And we need to open them to see what's behind, right? So um, sometimes I use a different word for a meaning that I want to create, and then I see that people understand what I mean with it. They just don't associate it with that word. So in my audience research, I'm trying to figure out what words are they already using, so I can just use them because that's what they understand anyways. But I just tell them that this is what I mean with that. So we go from the same path. If that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. So I also saw one testimonial where you were talking to this student of yours who became a TEDx speaker, and one of the stuff that he said he found really impactful that I'm hoping you could tell us a little bit more about is he talked about building up a story from small pieces. So you have like all of these small pieces, and then based on your audience, based on the impact you're trying to drive in the particular speech, you can combine the pieces together differently. Tell me a little more about that. Like I don't think I fully understood what the piece like are the pieces small stories that are building up a big story or are they parts of a story? Like, can you dive a little deeper into that?
Absolutely. And it ties back to what we already talked about a bit, so I can reframe to that. So, um, what I believe that you have, Ria, and everybody listening, is you have a story library, which is basically just picture the a whole, like there's a lot of books, and in every book there's a story, and those are stories of your life. They're scenes of your life, moments in time of your life that you can use, that you can reshare to make a point. That point that you want to make is your big aim, a big goal that you want to make, a big transformation, a transformation that you want to help people with. Like, for example, just let's just do this together. Well, what is the transformation that you help people with?
In my coding competition business, I'm helping them to try to advance that next division with this podcast, trying to help business owners get to 1 mil.
Yeah, so let's use this one. So you want to help business owners to get to 1 million in revenue. So maybe the transformation, what it could look like is they don't know how to do it. They feel overwhelmed to do it, and they don't have a mentor, something like this. Or they don't know the journey. So then it's like, okay, you help them to clarity, to the exact steps to a purposeful journey, something like this. Like that's the transformation. The aim is get them to 1 mil, right? So that is the aim that you want to reach. That in order for you to do that, you want to bring them on the journey. Because if you tell this, and this is maybe good to talk about before we dive into the story, is why do you want to use storytelling? Because It's not just funny stories in a theater play. Like, this is how our brains perceive information. If you tell stories, it's saved in 7 places of your brain. If you tell facts, only in 1. So can we just say that when you tell stories, people actually remember it longer,
Yeah,
right?
not
So
only,
yeah, go on.
oh yeah, I was gonna say that like when I think about going to Tony Robbins seminars, the things I remember most come from stories and the stories
Yeah.
that he tells.
Yes, exactly. So you do people a disservice if you don't use storytelling. So you want to include storytelling, but then with an aim. You don't want to just tell stories to tell stories because that becomes unclear. Um, so you need stories and you have stories. Stories are scenes of your life. So for example, Ria, is there like one moment in your life that you feel, okay, this could be a scene of my life that I could tell to this audience to get to 1 mil? Just like something that comes to mind.
Yeah, when I was just starting out, I took 100 sales calls and only closed like one out of the first 100 I took. Um, really low place to start out, but then I definitely learned how to iterate, how to grow from there, and now I'm doing significantly better.
I love that. So that is a scene of your life, the moment where you close that one sales call out of that 100, right? That could be a scene, that could be a moment. So that is one story in your story library. So what we would do to get, for example, to a TEDx talk, but to get basically to your signature speech, or what I believe in is more like a framework, like a baseline of something that you can iterate upon over time, depending on how you feel, who the audience is, you can change it. Doesn't have to be perfect at all. But what are different books? What are different stories? What are different Lego blocks? So once you start to identify these are all scenes of my life that I could tell the story, then we start to build. So what a lot of speakers do is they tell their story in a chronological way. But more often than not, it's incredibly boring to listen to. So then the play comes in. It's like, okay, how are you going to tell the story in a compelling way, where you create engagement, where you create a little mystery, a little magic, um, and still make sure that the aim is reached. And the beauty of this, Ria, and this is where the know, like, and trust really accelerates, is if you tell stories about your personal life, we start to understand a little bit more about you, right? We just learned about you that you did 100 sales calls. So what does that tell me about your personality? For me, it means determination. For me, it means you've done it yourself, right? For me, it means she doesn't give up. All of those things you just tell about yourself without saying that. And the same with when I was telling about my grandma, right? Like, what associations do you have without knowing me that you can just picture in your mind's eye? And those stories will help you to build that trust within another person as well.
That makes total sense. We're trying to tell a story to get whatever our aim is, and we're using the building blocks to sort of rearrange stuff to drive, make it more fun, make it more engaging.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So you're also a TEDx speaking coach. TEDx is, I mean, people have probably seen TED Talks before. What makes TED Talks so impactful, and how do TED Talks specifically drive business?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's different ways how you can leverage public speaking as a way to blow up your business. Like we already talked about, like going to audiences where, or like to talk on stages with audiences with your perfect avatar, right? In my opinion, that's the most absolutely amazing thing to start with. Then a TEDx, for example, really creates credibility. Like if you're a TEDx speaker, you just rise up in the ladder of trust for everyone. And the beauty of this is it's also a video that will always be on YouTube. So if people want to see what you're doing and they can watch your talk, you don't need to stand there all the time, but they can just watch the YouTube video on a platform that people already trust. So it's an amazing thing to leverage. What is really important to know though is because I am a public speaking coach for TED. So that means that I train the people to be quality enough to stand on those stages, but also that I was in the role of picking those speakers. And what I see a lot is that there's a difference between people who really care and an ego who wants to talk. And TEDx is really a beautiful filter of ideas worth sharing. And what I like to add to that sentence of like the TED motto is, and people are really caring. So that I think is really, really important, is you have the intent of sharing a vision, a story with the world that's so empowering that it's not about you, but it's about the mission. On the other side is TEDx has very specific rules. So it's a different way of going through your talk. It's a little bit more designed up front than what I think is necessary for you to blow up your business and to really share your mission with the world.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So you're also a digital nomad. What is a digital nomad and how does that add to the joy and energy of your life?
Yeah, it's funny because when I decided 2 years ago that I thought, the Netherlands, it's amazing and it's cold, it's cold. It rains a lot there. I love the beach, I love the ocean, I love the sun, and I want a little more adventure in my life. So I decided to basically quit my company that I was building in the moment. I sold my shares and I went to live somewhere else. And then I found out that because I could do my work online, there's a term digital nomad. So I felt super cool, obviously, because now I'm a digital nomad. I can tell people I am that. But basically, for me, it just gives a lot of freedom and ability to express myself in the way that I want to. Like right now, I'm in Mexico. I'm 10 minutes away from the beach. I can swim every day if I want to, which gives me so much joy. And it really also showed me that I don't need to, you know, I don't need to work and then live. It's like my whole life is one mission, and that's to help mission-driven people become more of themselves and share their impact with other people. And I feel that I'm doing that for myself by living this lifestyle. Because I love to collaborate, I love to learn new things, I love to travel, I love all of it. So for me, it basically helps me do my trainings better because I am the person that I'm proud of and that I want to inspire other people with by becoming more of them.
Definitely makes a lot of sense. And you've also, you've grown your business, you've taken steps to get to the point where you can just travel. So it makes total sense that you would take advantage of that and travel the world. So we talked a little bit earlier about building the speaking muscle, and you said you would provide a few exercises that people can do to build a speaking muscle. What are some things people can do if they want to build that speaking muscle up and become a better speaker?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's incorporating what you're already doing and then include a little bit more of speaking into it. So, for example, if your friends ask you, "Hey, how's it going?" You can type, "It's going well." Or what if you can create a video and just express how you're doing and show how you're doing? Or if no one asks, just send a video to a couple of friends just to say them how much you appreciate them or a question that you want to ask them. Um, which you would already get in touch with them anyways, but why not with a video? And you will be surprised how appreciative they are if you do that. By the lifestyle that I live, I'm not always in proximity with my family, with my friends at home, so I send them videos once in a while, and the beauty of it is they know that I do it all the time, so they start to send me videos back. So we start this whole movement of authentic communication where you are comfortable sharing in front of a camera, seeing your own face, practice with your message and making sure it's more clear. So that's one way. I also actually, and this is a gift that I can do to your audience, Ria, is I have a speaking habit training that I can just share with you for free, where for 14 days in a row you have the support to make messages and to share it in a safe community, to really make sure that you have the knowledge and that you understand the steps that you're taking. So at the end, you will have your message in a next level, clear way, if that makes sense.
That would be totally incredible. I'll link that down in the show notes or description, depending on where you're checking this out. And by the way, Lori, practice what she preaches. Whenever I send her a text, usually I might get like an audio back or a video back, some sort of visual thing back. Sometimes I'll get a text back, depending on, I guess, if she's busy or not. So definitely practice what she preaches there. Now, people talk to people all day long, right? I'm talking to people, I talk to my friends, family, whoever I'm around. what is the specific benefit to also filming audio clips instead of texting? Like, is there a specific benefit that you get that you don't get from just talking to people in general?
Yeah, yeah. So the thing that connects with public speaking is the fear of being seen, right? So if you're standing in front of of an audience, if it's like a camera or if it's a live audience, doesn't really matter. But there's an unconscious fear that's for everybody to be seen, because the association that we have with being seen more often than not is something negative, and that's from our childhood. So for us to practice with being seen, to really see ourselves and to confront ourselves with that visual aspect, is the next level of growth. It surprised me in the beginning because I thought, I'm teaching people how to speak. But the more and more I found out is there are so many associations that people have with the fear of speaking that I didn't even know would be possible. So I'm super grateful for all the people I've worked with over the years, that were vulnerable enough to voice those fears, because now I know that they exist, so I can, anticipate. So yeah, a big thing is to be comfortable with being seen.
Being on camera is definitely, now that you pointed out, being on camera is definitely different than just talking to people. I know the first
Mhm.
few times I started filming videos, I did not like them at all, and it was very uncomfortable. So that's definitely a great starting point to get your edge, and then you can start posting stuff and then start making speeches.
Exactly.
All right, Laurie, where can people find you? Where can they find what you're up to? Where can they, if they want to work with you, where can they do that?
Yeah. Well, the best way is through social media, either Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's my full name, Laurie Mabelis. So you type that in, and it would be lovely to get a DM with the word RIA. So I know you come from RIA's podcast, which would be awesome. So I know you already know all of this. And I would love to help you out to either um, gain more clarity in what your message is, but also to help you to get on stages and to get money from those, to really make sure that you can make this making an impact thing also sustainable. And why not get rich through it? It's all possible.
Okay, Laurie, well, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for your time. I hope this has been helpful to the audience. I know I learned a lot. Yeah, I'll have all of Laurie's links down below and hope you enjoyed this podcast. Thank you.